up everyone, True Blue here, and Nintendo Switch 2 has mouse controls. It was a big deal at first, and as of right now, we haven't really seen many games utilize the mouse controls, but Nintendo's always been a company that's been very innovative with their control schemes, and a lot of their gimmicks have gone throughout the entire lifespan of their consoles, like touchscreen on DS, motion controls on Wii. Just all of them have some sort of gimmick attached, and a lot of the games deal with it. The mouse controls were prompted as a big deal, but we haven't really seen the extent of it yet. We do have Dragon Drive, I don't know how you actually pronounce it, a basketball game where you're like in wheelchairs. It looks really sick and a really fun usage of the mouse controls, but I think that's the tip of the iceberg. We also recently got Mario Paint as a Nintendo Switch Online bonus. You can use the mouse controls in that game, which is really fun. And in the past, we also had games like Mario and Wario, which used the mouse controls back in the day. I believe that was Japan exclusive, so a lot of you might not know about that game. But the point stands, Nintendo is familiar with the mouse, of course. They just haven't had a chance to use it. So today, I want to look forward and back a bit and see what video games we could see from Nintendo that actually properly utilize the mouse controls. And I don't mean the you could switch between casual controls and mouse controls. I mean fully mouse-controlled games, or games that could have that as a very prominent control scheme option that people may prefer over your typical buttons and analog sticks. If you want to see more videos like this, I do a ton of videos like this. And I recommend subscribing so you can get them as soon as they come out, and more's on the way like always. Anyway, I want to hop right into it. So Nintendo has a very sparse history with mouse games. I just list kind of the big ones. And there's obviously some third-party support for those older consoles that had the mouse accessories. But for Nintendo's mainline games, there are a few that I think we could definitely see. Specifically older franchises that may not have gotten an entry anytime recently. On top of that, some games from older consoles that have their gimmicks kind of removed in modern generations. First up, this is a big one. Kid Icarus Uprising. I think this is the time for a remake. And I know a lot of people were saying we want a remake with gyro controls, because that would make a lot of sense. It would definitely fill in the void that was the motion controls. And if you haven't played Kid Icarus Uprising, it's a phenomenal game, but the controls hurt. You have to hold up 3DS with one hand, use the touchscreen and buttons at the same time with like the other. It is a control scheme. You get used to it, so it's definitely not the worst way to play a game, but it hurts. It's a hard game to play for long periods of time, and it's the biggest issue with the game and the biggest complaint I ever hear about the game. No one complains about the gameplay, it's all the control scheme. I think the perfect balance would be the mouse controls. I didn't mention previously, but the mouse controls to general standard control option, the transition is very seamless. If you play like Donkey Kong Artist and Bonanza, that game has a very seamless mouse mode. On top of that, if you play two-player mode with Pauline, again, going from a standard controller, switching off a Joy-Con to the mouse mode, super seamless, super quick, super easy. Kid Icarus Uprising had the interesting thing of having two game modes at all times, where you had your run and gun touchscreen at the start to a more typical on the ground. If they took the mouse control option, you could definitely make the standard, shooter at the start, and if you wanted to, have one other Joy-Con for your movements and other things, and then the mouse could still be for aiming and attacking. It would work so much better than what the previous thing was, which was just holding your entire 3DS. Again, it is not comfortable. As someone who's tried playing that game as much as possible, it is not comfy and it does actually hurt. Next up is another I've also heard floating around the internet, but this one I think has a lot more potential. StarFox, and I just mean a completely new entry. I know some people were saying like ports of some of the other ones, remakes. I think a completely new StarFox entry could work really well with the mouse controls. For one, the idea of maybe a less typical StarFox game where you're more like the dogfights constantly, use the mouse to maneuver and shoot at the same time would be fun, but it might be a simpler game. If they want to take the more standard approach of StarFox games, you can have like you're in the cockpit, as you fly around, you are controlling it with the mouse and shooting at the same time. Maybe you use one controller for your movements, one for the aiming and shooting. There's a lot of potential here for control scheme options with the mouse controls. And StarFox being a, space fighter, the dogfights that are constantly happening in the games, which are what people really like. From what I've heard, I'm not too big in the StarFox fandom, but to my knowledge, people prefer the dogfights over the standard levels where you're just kind of going and shooting. So, if they made a game that was mostly related to those things or more explorative, using the mouse controls I think would be a lot more fun of an experience. And again, StarFox is known for standard control options, so it could be easy to implement like a pro controller, and then maybe you want to switch off, again, use the Joy-Cons, put one down, you're in mouse mode. It's very seamless. Now, I did mention previously Donkey Kong Artist and Donkey Kong Bonanza. It's a very fun mode, and while I wouldn't say it's necessarily fleshed out, people have been already making insane stuff with it, and it's actually a lot of fun. We did get Mario Paint as well, which I previously mentioned, but what if we just get a new Mario Artist? I mean, Donkey Kong Artist, Mario Paint. If they're not trying to push the Mario Artist brand back to the top and give us a new entry, I don't know what's going on here. Honestly, Mario Artist has covered a lot of things over the time, especially if you look back at those like NES games. There's like the Music Maker, the painting, like there's a lot they could do, and frankly, I think they should just go all out if they're gonna make a new one, because no one's gonna buy a simple doodle with your Nintendo Switch game for $60. Alright, they need to go out. I think like a 3D modeler where you could use the mouse to manipulate the models of Mario and Peach and recolor them. A Music Maker's also in there. Like, a lot of stuff would be put in this package, but I think a new Mario Artist is something we could actually see happening, especially with the 40th anniversary coming, and I think this could be one of those fun ways to pay tribute to a lot of the franchise through a fun little package. Now, here's a game that we don't know its future as of right now, but I think mouse controls would be a phenomenal play scheme for Pikmin. Pikmin 4 is a couple years old at this point, and we haven't had any new Pikmin news since then. So a new Pikmin, or at least updates to the older ones since they're all on Switch, with mouse support? Oh my god. Like, people love, and I mean people love playing the OG Pikmin games with Wii and Nunchuck. Using the pointer controls is awesome. You can get a similar experience with Gyro, but it's not the same. Mouse controls would be so much better than pointer. I think we can all agree the mouse controls better than the Wii's pointer system, because that's very ancient technology at this point, even if a lot of other companies just don't know how to copy it. The mouse, with its more precise movements, on top of the fact you can have all the buttons mapped as well, you can even use that analog stick for the camera, the rest could be for the movement and selecting Pikmin. Like, oh my god, if we don't get a Pikmin game with mouse support, I want a mod at least from the fans. Like, that game screams mouse controls. Like, it would work so well that it boggles my mind we've never had it in any capacity. And the last game, which I guess is a bit cheating, but I do think would be a lot of fun, a new WarioWare. I'm not too crazy on the WarioWare games, I know, a hot take, but WarioWare typically has a new game on every system, sometimes multiple at that really utilizes the gimmick of the console. If it's the DS's touchscreen, the Joy-Cons, or just whatever other gimmick Nintendo's working with at the time. A new WarioWare that focuses on mouse controls on top of the seamless switching between Joy-Cons and mouse, I think would be a lot of fun. And since the last WarioWare game uses the IR camera from the right Joy-Con, which isn't supported anymore, I think it would make sense for a new WarioWare game that actually utilizes the Joy-Con 2's capabilities instead of the Joy-Con 1's to give us a better experience, one that I think works a lot better. I think it'd be fun because the Wario games are very stylized. You can have custom pointers in that game, probably. Like, I don't see why they would have to use the generic Nintendo standard mouse option. I feel like other games could implement their custom cursors, if possible. Like, I don't know how the code's programmed, but I think that's definitely a possibility for some games. And that being said, those are 5 games that I could see Nintendo giving us with proper mouse support control schemes in the future. If you have any other ideas for games that we could get, if they're new or old, let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your ideas. And it's weird to say that we don't know what Nintendo will really do. Again, the mouse for like the SNES and those older consoles was very hard, or very niche, not used much. The idea of it coming back in any way, especially with new games that use the mouse controls, and obviously the mouse is very much a powerful device. We have PCs and we know how much the mouse is capable of doing. Putting that in the gaming sphere, especially with Steam, and we've already seen so many games use it as well, it's weird to think that Nintendo will be using it on their mainline hardware this time. And we already have games like Splatoon, which people already want that implementation in, because it's an FPS shooter. Well, not FPS, it's not really first person, but you get the point. I'm excited to see what they do with the mouse controls. It's probably one of the only gimmicks I actually see going off very well, compared to a lot of past versions of the Nintendo big gimmicks for the year. Because, let's be honest, they've done a lot of wacky stuff that just doesn't pan out. This is one of the ones I think we could see a lot of good potential for. So I'm very excited for. And that's all I have for you guys today. Again, if you want to see more, subscribe, check out more of my videos. There's way more content, of course, and more on the way. And I wish you all a lovely day.